Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I hope the week's gone well. So much happens, doesn't it? I was talking to my older girls who are 19 and 20, and I said to them, you know, there's this little viral snippet that Lana Del Rey tweeted on her birthday. Thanks for making it a beautiful day. It's about 6 seconds, and I played it to Nish, and I said, I really like it because it's so happy. And the link's there actually under Home Thoughts. Take a look and see if you agree with me. The VIX over 20 years, and you can see from this chart that we've been in a very low VIX environment for a while. And people have been predicting, you know, a resurgence for quite a while, but I think we'll get it eventually. Classic chart. Are bond yields really that low? JS Blockland. Is giving you bond yields over the last 2 decades and more. And that's why, you know, I was writing about how I was copying the song Hotel California, mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice, and saying that, you know, that party is over now, and trying to sort of pick pieces in the aftermath of it. They're going very gently so far, but you can see that the markets are very nervous about how this all will develop. Home Thoughts, as I said, that Lana Del Rey snippet from Twitter, and I went back to something that Ai Weiwei posted in the States. I think it was Washington. What's in a name? A name is the first and final marker of individual rights, one fixed part of the ever-changing human world. A name is the most basic characteristic of our human rights. No matter how poor or how rich, all living people have a name, and it is endowed with good wishes, the expectant blessings of kindness and virtue. It had a powerful impression on me, actually. And the name that I suppose I want to remember at this point in time is Mr. Liu. And we'll come to that in a moment. But let me show you an installation which was at that exhibition called The Snake by Ai Weiwei. There have been fascinating articles coming out about the Trilobites living another day thanks to grandparents who couldn't sleep. You may not look forward to sleeping less as you get older, but maybe it wouldn't seem as bad if you knew it once played an important role in human survival. A new study published on Tuesday in Proceedings of the Royal Society B suggests that the way sleep patterns change with age may be an evolutionary adaptation that helped our ancestors survive the night by ensuring one person in the community was awake at all times. The researchers call this phenomenon the poorly sleeping grandparent hypothesis, suggesting that an older member of a community who woke before dawn might have been crucial to spotting the threat, as long as their eyesight was still intact, spotting the threat of a hungry predator while younger people were still asleep. May explain why people slept in mixed age groups through much of human history. We may be looking at just another reason why grandparents were critical in human evolution, said Elisa Crittenden, author of the study, and an associate professor of anthropology at the University of Nevada in Las Vegas. Researchers analyzed the sleep patterns of a society of hunter-gatherers in Tanzania called the Hadza. 33 members of the Hadza community wore small watch-like tracking devices on their wrists for 20 days. Researchers analyzed the sleep patterns of a society of hunter-gatherers in Tanzania, and they're saying that this sleeping environment may have similarities to that of earlier humans. They sleep outdoors or in grass huts in groups of 20 to 30 people without artificially regulating temperature or light. These conditions provide a suitable window to study the evolutionary aspects of sleep. Out of more than 220 total hours of sleep observation, researchers found only 18 minutes when all adults were sound asleep simultaneously. Typically, older participants in their 50s and 60s went to bed earlier and woke up earlier than those in their 20s and 30s. On average, more than a third of the group was alert or lightly dozing at any given time. It's a very interesting story, and actually Bob in his main speak started with the Trilobites, so I'll get that and fuse it on video. How will the ships navigate without stars? And then he remembered that the stars were dead, long dead, and the light they shed was not to be trusted, was false, if not an outright lie, and in any case was inadequate, unequal to its task, which was to illuminate the evil that men did. Jeet Thayil. We're waiting for a glance or a word, some acknowledgement that we are here. And then I like this one. The world is on fire, time is a bomb. 10,000 years are not enough when so much remains to be done. Geopolitical, Narcopolis. Political reflections. Mr. Liu wrote for his trial. He thanked Mrs. Liu for her selfless love. And listen to this. Even if I'm crushed into powder, I will embrace you with ashes, he wrote. My goodness. The government accused Mr. Liu of inciting subversion of state power. 2009, Mr. Liu was sentenced to 11 years in prison, and even after he learned he had liver cancer in May, Chinese authorities refused to let him leave the country for treatment. So one of China's most famous dissidents died on Thursday under guard in a Chinese hospital at the age of 61. He was his country's only Nobel Prize laureate. As is common in an increasingly repressive China, this is New York Times, Mr. Liu was punished not for a crime, but for giving voice to the most basic human yearnings. In 2008, he was a leader in drafting Charter 8, a constitutional reform manifesto that advocated respect for universal values shared by all humankind, including human rights, equality, freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. The Charter endorsed direct elections, judicial independence, and an end to Communist Party dominance. And though it was on the internet only briefly before censors pulled it, it garnered 10,000 signatures. And Liu Xiaobo, he kept vigil at Tiananmen Square in 1989 to protect protesters, and actually his intervention did exactly that. And this is a photograph of Ai Weiwei, who I was quoting earlier, what's in a name, at Tiananmen Square, and in memoriam for Liu Xiaobo, as you can see from his t-shirt. Liu Xiaobo was born in December 1955 and died yesterday. Chinese literary critic, writer, human rights activist, Nobel Peace Prize laureate, who called for political reforms and the end of communist single-party rule. See why he got locked up. He was incarcerated as a political prisoner in Jinzhou. On 26 June 2017, he was granted medical parole after being diagnosed with terminal liver cancer, and he died at the hospital on the 13th of July. Liu Xiaobo will remain a powerful symbol for all who fight for freedom, democracy, and a better world, Mr. Rhys Anderson. He was truly a prisoner of conscience, and he paid the highest possible price for his relentless struggle. He was a dissident even among dissidents, friend and biographer. Liu Xiaobo was willing to criticize himself and reflect on his actions in a way that even many activists in the democracy movement can't. Couple of quotes. The internet is truly God's gift to the Chinese people, he said. I hope that I will be the last victim in China's long record of treating words as crimes. Well, it's very sad. The Chinese system is extremely unfeeling. will grind people like that into that dust he described. That was powerful, wasn't it? The official diner, Trump, Macron and spouses with Chef Ducasse at the Eiffel Tower. That's from Helena Fouquet. Donald Trump Jr., meanwhile, made it onto the front cover of Time magazine. Trump's 2 nights of parties in Moscow reverberate years later, says Bloomberg Politics. Seychelles reports find of possible plane debris, MH370. I said in August 2015 that signal announcing this new arrhythmic normal that we find ourselves in was the disappearance of MH370. I said picking up the signal through the noise of our world in 2014 is no easy thing. In fact, my view is the new normal is a very arrhythmic world. When I plugged arrhythmia into my computer, it threw this up. For years, he'd been studying the phenomena of chaos, of which an arrhythmic heartbeat was a perfect example. His Excellency Johann Borgstein told me that the signal announcing this new arrhythmic normal was the disappearance of MH370. Since then, planes have been falling out of the sky like flies, and the uncertainty around MH370 and MH17, which is sharpened by the way the story is seemingly turned on and off, took me back to Don DeLillo, who said, we are not witnessing the flow of information so much as pure spectacle, or information made sacred, ritually unreadable. The small monitors of the office, home and car become a kind of idolatry where crowds might gather in astonishment. Did Cambridge Analytica play a role in the EU referendum, asks BBC Newsnight. That video is linked there, and of course they're playing a role here as well. International markets, we've never had it so good. Global markets hit new highs. Equity is now worth $76.3 trillion, the highest value in history. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 114.15, dollar index 95.70, Japanese yen 113.26, Swiss franc 0.9677, pound, let's have a take a look at that, 129.65, that's come back. The Australian dollar was last trading at 0.7757, that's had a good run. India rupee 64.465, that's been pretty steady all year, it's appreciated a little bit. South Korean won 1134.34, and interestingly, isn't it, it hardly moves at all this red-hot action on the peninsula. Brazilian real, about which is at 321.15. Practically all the media is reporting this as a democratic move by President Temer and a positive step forward, but I don't see how that's going to happen. I think Lula's going to split the country right down the middle. And this Egyptian pound 17.96, South African rand 13.20, a little bit of a recovery from as high as 13.44.45, but that was in line with a general post-Yellen recovery. Dollar index, I think, targets 93.50. This is a one-year chart. Euro dollar is drifting around a little bit last 2 sessions after a storming run higher, but I think we're going to 117.50. Man, it's been a while since I looked at shares of the company that makes La Croix. This is from the Stalwart. Take a look. This is interesting. Social media ETF hits a new all-time high, up 37% year to date versus 10% for the S&P 500. That's from Charlie Vilello. Commodity markets, look at this, the spread between grain volatility and SPX volatility is at extreme levels. This is again from the Stalwart. US crude futures settled at $46.08 a barrel, up 1.3%. This chart's from Lee Sachs. My target remains $32, but we're going to go up. We're going to zig and we're going to zag. We're not going to go down in a straight line. Today, for example, I think we'll probably close higher. The waning power of the petrodollar. This is from Jamie at Reuters. By some measures, the petrodollar was at the peak of its global powers in 2006. Oil and energy exporters recycled some $500 billion into global bank lending markets and the financial markets that year, according to BNP Paribas. Current account surpluses from 2000 to 2014 were poured into overseas markets. OPEC countries ran a collective current account deficit in 2015 for the first time since 1998. Saudi Arabia's deficit last year was 8.7% of GDP, compared to a surplus of nearly 30% in 2005. On the 8th of May, I was writing a piece, and I said the OPEC go-go days of Sheikh Yamani, his prayer beads and Delphic pronouncements belonged to yesteryear. Mohammed Sanusi Barkindo, the current OPEC Secretary General, I said, is a poor imitation of Yamani, and he's playing with a set of hands that is stacked against him. Put up a photograph of Sheikh Zaki Yamani. And as I said, reserves have been depleted. This is confirming Jamie's article, from Abuja to Riyadh, from Luanda to Caracas, and in all the oil-producing capitals in the world. Gold last trading at 12.19. Let's move on to Africa. 5 elections tell the diverse tale of democracy in Africa. This is David Pilling in the FT. 5 African presidents with a collective 90 years of leadership under their belt are meant to hold elections in the next 5 months. Among them, only Joseph Kabila, who inherited the presidency of the DR Congo from his assassinated presidential father in 2001, is ducking the challenge, claiming his country is too broke to organize a poll. 4 out of 5, as they say, ain't bad. The elections will take place starting with Rwanda on August the 4th, followed by Kenya, Angola and Liberia, and tell the variegated story of African democracy. 2 of the 4, those in Kenya and Liberia, will be genuinely competitive and fiercely fought. The other 2 in Rwanda and Angola will be walkovers for the dominant ruling parties, though in Angola President Jose Eduardo dos Santos is calling it a day after 37 years. He has already anointed João Lourenço, defense minister, as his replacement. In Kenya, which moved to multi-party democracy in 1991, nothing is stage-managed about elections. So brutally are they fought, and so high the winner-takes-all stakes in power and money, that they fit the description of war by other means. Across the continent in Liberia, it is anyone's guess who will win in a crowded field that may include the current vice president, several experienced politicians, as well as a former Coca-Cola executive, a former warlord, and a one-time football star. The only thing certain is that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the continent's first elected female leader, will step down after 2 terms. That she will go without a fuss remains noteworthy in a continent where leaders of 3 decades standing, including Zimbabwe's Robert Mugabe, are seeing out their immortocracies to the bitter end. That's a great word. And then talking about Kabila, saying, so scared is Mr. Kabila even of a corpse that he has resisted the return of Tshisekedi's body for burial. If the remains are eventually allowed back, it will be progress of a sort. At least then it will be 4 elections and a funeral. I wrote about this in November 2014 after the events in Ouagadougou, and I called it Ouagadougou's signal to sub-Saharan Africa. And I was saying African youth demographics, which many characterize as a demographic dividend, turned out for beautiful Blaise Compaoré to be a demographic terminator. And I said, we're seeing the altering of the existing equilibrium between the rulers and the subjects, and that a rebalancing has begun, but it's non-linear. That's what Africa is, isn't it? So some places are moving a lot faster, others it's not, others in reverse. But the general trend, we know, is going to go in which direction. This is a photograph of Joseph Kabila. DRC is too broke to organize a poll. President Kagame, today we have the will, we have the means, and no one can claim to stand in our way. The Economist says, many Africans see Kagame's Rwanda as a model. They are wrong. When Paul Kagame was 28, he helped topple the government of Uganda. At 36, he overthrew the government of Rwanda. At 39, he ousted the government of Congo, which was then called Zaire. It is hard to think of another leader who has won so many wars against such repulsive enemies on such a tight budget. I like this quote: "If oppressed women should wage a war, I would readily smuggle ammunition to them, for it would be a justified war," he said. On August 4, Rwandans will re-elect Mr. Kagame. The outcome is not in doubt. He has always won more than 90% of the vote in the past. Basically, saying that the repression, the failure to create a successor, saying in 1994 Kagame was unnecessary, if too brutal solution to a problem from hell. Now he is the problem, they're saying. He once said that if he was unable to groom a successor by 2017, it means that I have not created capacity for a post-me Rwanda. I see this as a personal failure, he said. He was right. After the election, Rwanda's hard man should retire gracefully. I think more countries should have a Paul Kagame that go much further, much more quickly. The IMF just pointed out that South Africa's vulnerabilities have become more pronounced. That's one way of putting it. A potentially prosperous and dynamic economy is on the fast track to ruin. Altering its course will take real political reform. This is a Bloomberg view. Fruits of failed economic policy, yet far from grasping the need for change at a recent conclave of the ruling ANC, President Jacob Zuma championed ideas for entrenching his dominance and enriching his supporters. He's trying to engineer the succession of his ex-wife, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, as head of the ANC, and is pushing his program for radical economic transformation, a toxic brew of all too radical populist policies, says Bloomberg View. South African all shares up 5.23% this year. The rand is at 13.20, and back in that 12.60, 13.40 range. Egyptian pound 17.96. Nigerian all shares had a great run this year, up 23.71%. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is up 20.62% year to date. Donald Trump ducks a decision on sanctions on Khartoum, rolls it over for 3 months. Kenya, 2 killed in hostage rescue operation after militant attack in Kenya. It's suddenly heating up at the periphery, you will note. ISS today is at Raila Odinga's turn to eat. Key among those is the likelihood of a close race and therefore a contested outcome. In the presidential poll, where Odinga has gained about 12 percentage points in 6 months to trail President Kenyatta by only 5%. They and their coalitions are each commanding more than 40% of voter support, making this essentially a 2-horse race and suggesting a very unpredictable runoff contest. Key issues are going to be the enfranchisement of this demographic bulge, big block of voters, turnout. Will it typically much stronger in Jubilee strongholds than in opposition strongholds? Will that be maintained? Will the government look to put some pressure? Like the curfew right now, I think in some of these areas, it'll be interesting to watch. But it is close at the moment. Listen to this. Despite all that, it is hard to see Odinga winning on 8th August, even if the outcome is close enough to suggest Odinga might have won in a fair fight. Most observers predict an official Kenyatta victory, again endorsed by the Constitutional Court, if Odinga chooses to dispute it. We're moving away considerably from my minimum ask, which was the real economy needs a transparent process. Yesterday's interview at Bloomberg with the IEBC signalled issues there. A first round result, 4 percentage points, means it goes to the second round, I'm afraid, and a gracious loser. Let's see how we get along. Unga tycoon accuses US firm Cargill of blackmail. Take a look at that story. Kenya shilling 103.895. Nairobi all share up 14.74% year to date at 2-year highs. NSE 20 up 14.85% year to date. That's at a 1-year high. And then just to give you some idea, Safaricom up 20.104% year to date, just 2.173% below a record high set on 3 occasions last month. Uchumi's announcement was equivalent to waving the red flag at the bulls, who rallied Uchumi yesterday 8.16% and have rallied it limit up again today. Britam has seen a big uptick in trading volumes. It's up an incredible 58% this year. If you want to look at the share price data, that link's there as well. WPP Scan Group closed at a 2017 high. National Bank yesterday closed limit up. That's up 40.27% since the KCB news leaked into the market. And finally, Limuru Tea, which is an esoteric and little traded share, traded 12.325% of its shares yesterday, which is a material trade. Look, I wish you a fantastic weekend and speak to you Monday.